Okay, well, I had some final thoughts on Esther. There were a few little things that popped up that I realized I didn't mention. So it'll probably be a 10-minute video or so. So I just want to mention those things. One thing was okay, I mean, we know Vashti was discharged and then Esther was taken up in her place. And Esther, I mean, this whole thing I mentioned about submitting and obeying and all that, she was the type, but we have to keep in mind that, uh, this is definitely symbolic of the church submitting to God. So, that's definitely a theme in there that's represented by all of this. So I wanted to mention that. And then we also have that she, well, I mean, of course, she became queen. So you have that royal aspect. And I mentioned that intercession thing where she took on kind of a priestly role in that and entered into that place where she put her life at risk. So, and of course, she was a type of Christ. I mentioned that. But here you have the whole king and priest thing represented, where we will reign as kings and priests 1,000 years with him. So that's represented in there. I mean, it could be, queens, princesses, whatever the term is, but, that royal title. Okay, so that, let's see. So the rain thing and all that. So, okay, so that, I mentioned it, but I just wanted to make sure I mentioned all this. Then we have the wedding feast was represented in here because when she ascended to the throne of queen and he married her, then there was a wedding feast and it was called the Feast of Esther. But I don't know, it didn't say, I think, how long it went on, but they definitely had a feast to celebrate that. So it was a celebration of the wedding, which makes it a wedding feast. And that would totally represent the wedding feast in the book of Revelation between the bride and Christ. So, the church and Christ. So there's that. That I totally didn't mention. So I, thought I'm going to come back on here and do another one. And then these other little things started creeping in. So I thought, oh, yeah. And then there was this and then there was that. Well, another thing was that the whole theme of obeying God above man was in there too, because there was the thing I mentioned that, like Mordecai not bowing and why and all that, but it was also like it was a decree, so he was obeying God above man by disobeying that law, Mordecai, so there was that in there as well. And I added that to my list of places where that's mentioned. And I'll get to that. But another thing is the fact that Haman went after not just Mordecai, but all of his people over the issue of the not bowing. It wasn't enough with that. I mean, he wanted to go after everyone. And I thought, it could be that he knew, well, Mordecai doesn't bow because he's Jewish, so all the Jews don't bow. Therefore, he wanted to go after all of them because he didn't like this whole thing. He wanted people to bow to him, so he decided to persecute them all over that. Like, it was that issue that they obey God above man, and he wanted to persecute them over that issue, which would make sense in a demonic way, like just somebody who and he was a type, like I said. So they would seek to persecute that kind of people, of course. So that could have been a motivation in his mind. But anyway, so there was that. Yeah, but definitely we always have to obey God above man. And so here is my list on that. I know I mentioned these, but I'm going to just go in order through the Bible. So the first one is Exodus 1, where the midwives disobey Pharaoh and God blesses them, and they lie about it all, and God blesses them for all of that. So there's that one. And then we have, Esther, chapter 3, 3 through 5, and chapter 5, verse 9, where Mordecai does that thing. And then we have Daniel chapter 3, where the three friends of Daniel don't, bow to the image idol. And Daniel 6, where Daniel doesn't obey the law and he prays like he always does anyway, because, he obeys God above man. So, of course, that kind of thing, whether it's doing something or not doing something, you obey God above man. So that's Daniel. And then Acts chapter 4, verse 20, and Acts chapter 5, verse 29, where they say we must obey God above man when they were threatened, about preaching the gospel. So they just say we must obey God above man. And that's what we're going to do, and that's what they did. So anyway, so there's that. So it shows up a lot of times. There may be more times, but anyway, that's the list that I have right now. Okay. So anyway, that's it for Esther. I don't think I will find anything else or recall anything else. So those are the final thoughts on Esther. I've already done the reading for tomorrow, so I have that ready to go, and I will start. I'm going to go through the history books next, and that's where I tie in all kinds of stuff about types of Christ and symbolisms, and their types of the end, and there are all kinds of secrets hidden in that. So I'll go over all that, and I'll be pulling from my notes a lot for that. So that will be interesting. I know history can be kind of dry, but this won't be. It'll be very interesting. And then there are all kinds of situations that are entertaining. So it'll be interesting, and you'll learn a lot. So, okay. That's it for this one. It's only about 8.5 minutes, so it is short. Okay, have a blessed evening, and I'll be back tomorrow.